Yeah, I recognized this motor as soon as I got the cover off. Now, General Motors does like to um, recycle names of stuff a lot. They do like to use the Ecotech name a lot, so there is a lot of engines that have Ecotech on them that aren't related at all. Um, but there's one series that I always call the Ecotech. It was one of the first ones to get that name, and they are all related. There's a 2 liter, a 2.2, and 2.4. This is a 2.4. And really, the only real difference in the displacement is just a little bit of bore stroke, but everything else, the timing, all that is the exact same. One, they're known for notorious timing failures. Again, you're not showing any problems with timing failure yet. I'm just saying that my history of this engine has been that it always eventually happens. Um, and it's a pretty expensive job when that does come. That, if you catch it in time for me to fix it. Now, if your timing truly fails completely while you're driving, it'll kill the motor. So there's, nothing but replace the motor at that point. But you do get warning signs first, and then if you get that fixed, usually it's about a $700 job, so it's a pretty big one. The other things, I actually don't know this engine to be much of one for oil consumption, and I don't think yours is doing that for the most part. But it does have. This is something that's just happening to most newer cars. As the EPA has gotten more and more strict over the years. PCVs used to be real simple. Used to be just a tube on top, something real simple you could replace for, 20, 30 bucks. But now they're demanding that they be designed in such a way they can't be manipulated by just the regular car owners. So it's actually a pretty complicated thing that requires taking your whole intake manifold off. So, and I'm pretty certain that's one of the things in your oil, because when those blow, there's a relief, basically, because your car needs it, for pressure that goes through a tube into your intake. And the PCV is supposed to control the air, because sometimes air can go back the wrong way. It's not supposed to go inwards, only outwards. There's supposed to be a check valve for that. It's that piece that's going to be inside the intake manifold. And when it gets blown and it's able to blow both ways, it will start making the car idle by blowing it through this. And you can see that's getting real nasty. I noticed that as soon as I was taking that apart. Yeah, the hose for it, because this is the hose that will connect to this end and then connects to your air intake piece on top. But the actual PCV valves on any of this, just the tubing. Because again, they don't want the owner of the car to be able to manipulate it. They want it to be something that's difficult to change or difficult to mess with. So that's one where that's like truly getting that changed, because I do, like I said, I can tell that's a big part of what's eating your oil just from how gross this is. It's clearly getting a lot of oil shot back through it, and it would require, the piece is not very expensive, but there would be the work of getting this off. Now here's the third thing I noticed. Not all Ecotech engines have this, but a lot of modern cars do, and every modern car that does this has this issue. I love my Hyundai, but it's the one thing even my Hyundai has I hate. The fact you can see this thing here, this is a high pressure fuel pump. That means this has direct fuel injection. The issue with that is that any other kind of other fuel injection came through above the intake or into the intake, washed over the intake valves and cleaned them off, because gas is a great solvent, cleans all the buildup that's on them off, so it keeps them clean automatically. In direct injection, it puts the fuel directly into the combustion chamber below the valve. The valve over time gets nasty. It gets to be like your engine can't breathe, essentially. You need what's called a walnut blasting. I know it sounds crazy, because it literally is taking crumbs of walnuts and just shooting them with a air compressor at this area. It's not something you get often, but I'm sure you do for it now, because usually I would tell a person it's usually do about 50, 60,000 miles. That one is expensive, but also it goes with this. That walnut blast is 500, which I understand if you don't want to do that now. That one's going to have to do with how your engine performs and stuff, and over time it'll get to where your car just won't run well at all as it gets built up worse and worse. But I could even tell now, like, granted it is the 4-cylinder, but it just seemed like it didn't have as much power as it should, and that's definitely going to be why it's essentially like your car can't breathe as long as those are clogged. But yeah, so those are the things I'm looking at. Why I say it's mixed is that there's some stuff that's expensive. There is one thing that's broken that would be a little bit of a hassle. Like, again, the part wouldn't be much, but the work, taking the whole intake manifold off, all that, making sure all that's good, new gasket, everything, it would probably, if we did just that, and that should fix most of your oil eating problem, that would still probably run you about 150 or so total because of all the manual labor, all the labor I'd have to do on it. Um, or if you actually wanted to do the walnut blasting, if you had the money and wanted to go through with that big job, since the intake manifold is to come off for that job too, there'd just be the extra charge of the PCB part. I would just charge for the walnut blasting itself, and I'd do the PCB while I'm in there. But again, I know that job is a pricey one, so I can understand if you don't want to do that one right now. But yeah, if you want to do just the PCB itself, because that's probably the majority of your oil eating, that would run you, I would say, about 150 bucks. We'll get that fixed up. So yeah, there's no real signs of anything serious. And yeah, I've looked at top and bottom. There's virtually no sign of oil leaks, so you're not getting it there. And like I said, I do know this engine, and this one is not one known for oil consumption. I have not run into that problem with them. But again, a blown PCB will cause that, but that's a different kind of oil consumption. It's not like a major engine failure. That's just a part that in this design is hard to get to. So yeah, overall, really there's not much that's in any bad shape right now. There's just some things on here that are pretty serious flawed designs that will get expensive. So just so you know that in the future. So that's why the news is kind of mixed. Nothing scary now. You've just got a car that will have its moments where it'll rack up some big bills.